Blog Talk Radio.
But now I'ma shut up and step off from the action. It's cool, we give you hits, we do the most track. The cool, we go ahead. The record that he's my protege. So check him out without a doubt and you will agree. He goes by the name of Cut, that's a good beat. Cut the funky records for me cause I'm screwing. You will agree that he will be pursuing a career. And like I have no fear, when he cut the funky records he mostly disappear. Sing it, tick it, rockin' and MC though. He's highly recognized the DJ of Cisco. He can like Nick and he can like Cut. Every time I rock people say what the heck. Can they be checking it? Yo, wait a second. As he be rocking it, always collecting the money on the president, whatever you call it. Become a goofy. Go for it.
Mr. Dynamite! So Yes, y'all are chillin' like beatin'. You could either dance or just have a seat and listen to the way it. What I am displaying, a different kind of rapper language that I am saying. To all the party people, had it go but for info. When it come to rockin' parties, I am a nympho. Maniac, brainiac, for doing my dancing. My record make the music, will put you in a trance and hypnotize your body. And like it's a cardigan, you won't be fighting the illin', you just be partying down. With the funky town with yours truly, I'm the original B.I.Z. Okay, I was the E and I came to have fun and not be number one. And just here to let you know who's like running the place. And everywhere that I perform and do a show, as long as you know that nobody beats the biz. 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 You know me as the B.I.Z. I go for what I know, doing a show for human beings. I'm guaranteed to rock to make the ladies scream and shout. I'm bound to wreck your body as they turn the party out. The party rapper knows that will always have a form. And when you hear the biz monkey, I get the jaws on you. I'm the M.A.R.K. You know that's me. I got the stutter step to keep it check. My speed is so unique. They say I look and sound funny, but I don't be caring. I rock the lap quarter rooftop, being square and rolling. The hot dog, that's the squid art. Even I put the word fit at Java Center. Part in the ways that I'll be talking about, the places I'll be rocking. I love to perform for the people that be clocking. I think that your own mind don't want it like I want it, but you pay for good performance. You're on it, you want it. That's why I'm here to be like letting you know that I'm a highly recognized as the king of disco and making people laugh and have a lot of enjoyment. I'm the best person for this type of employment. That's why. Nobody beats the biz. Nobody beats the biz. Nobody beats the biz. Nobody beats the biz.
People in the audience, Coochie Rap is my name. I write rhymes and assert them inside the brain. And DJ Polo, the man up behind it, operates the turntables when I rock in my rhymes to give a demo. Psychopath on the photograph, none of the cut. You heard the voice, life is it nice or what? He's the main entertainer inside the show, and he goes by the name of DJ Polo to give a demo. He's a real operator, the walking tall, we call the Terminator. I'm Uzi Rap and he's Polo. He cuts like a pro when I go solo. He's a winner, winner that you can bet. He's a DJ presenter on the table set. The cut speaks, the cop in a party rock, and DJs want to hear I sit out my box. I'm a professional performer, will still trainer, 100% excellent entertainer. The maker and creator of the lyrical line. Idea of Shakespeare, the mind of Einstein. Surrender, pretender, you don't exist as a vocalist. So you can kiss this, I'm 2G rap greatest of all time, so you can see it. It's time my rhymes to give a demo. My recital will form a musical brainstorm, powerful sound waves where eardrums are formed. The form of the sight, the platform ignite audiences. Tonight I came to incite fascinating results. My conceit book is difficult, equivalent to 1,000 volts. To my beat rap, you attack like a leech. Examine when I'm jamming, and when I preach. Before I'm completed, you will all be deleted. You said I suck, instead I succeeded. Fan fascinator, occupy data. According to the proof, I'm a real smooth operator. I activate a musical device, dialogue up the sight, no need to flight. A system contains musical rap range, instrumentals inserted inside the brain. All things rate low with the medium tempo. I give a thematical cameo show, and now you know DJ Polo. Party people are ready to go to get the demo. Better than a sticker when it comes to a snack. I'm a solo in Polo when I'm in combat. I'm the instant humanoid, and I just get annoyed. Boy, you can joy, cause you got me like a Polaroid. Come on like a meteor inside any area. Make the people merrier, this is like a barrier. I'm a terrorist, I will terrorize. Selling any territory, I'm a glory enterprise. The microphone fanatic, cause I'm the Asiatic rubber man from the motherland. Rapping automatic, you suffer at the suffocate. Then I start to alienate, make you an inmate, so you cannot retaliate. Mutilated or raped to penetrate you. No upper crew can rescue. My talents are bound, audience is silent. MC stop fighting or I'll give violence. It's a demo. demo, it's a 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 demo. I'm demo, it's a 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 demo,
You're in the mix with the old school guru, TJ Kids. Get 'em move.
Well, wait a minute. Y'all thought he was finished? You're about to go back in the day, back when things was real good, real love, back in the old school days. Guru, DJ Kids, disco. Let's go.
When I was 5 years old, I realized it was the road. At the end, I would win lots of pots of gold. Never took a break, never made a mistake. Took time to create, took money to make. To be a billionaire, it's hard work for years. Some nights I shed a tears while I sat a prayer. Been through hard times, even worked part-time. In a food store, people for time. I was short of a quarter, thinking the next man's orders. Breaking my back for the shack for headquarters. All my manpower, for $4 an hour. Took my time and wrote rhymes in the shower. Shoes are scuffed cause the road gets rough. But I'm a rocket cause my box seems soft enough. All the freaks with the seat cause my jacks are weak. They return to up the seat so I started to see a way to get a play. And maybe one day I'll be performing up a store for a decent pay. No matter how it seems, I always pass the dream. All the girly scream and suckers get cream. Dreams about it for 5 years straight. Finally I got a break, but the first place. The road ain't yellow and there ain't no witches. My name is DJ Rap, I'm on the road to the riches. I used to stand on the block, till I cooked up rock. Money pumping out my sock, cause I really was rock. Looking for kind of things, swinging jackets and jeans, magazines, anything, just to hustle a beat. The cash was coming fast, money grew like grass. People hungry for the blast that don't even last. Didn't wanna be a boss, but the money will get you. Getting richer and richer, simply to a picture, but still supply. Some people I knew died, murders and homicides, survivors and suicide. Money, jewelry, living like a star, and I wasn't too far from a Jaguar car in a small town casino. The town's Al Pacino, for all of the girls, the pretty boy Valentino. I shot up stores and I kicked down doors. Collected cars from little neighborhood wars. Many legs I broke, many necks I choked. And if provoked, I let the pistol smoke. Loyal members in the crew, now down with the game. Selling niggas designs for sunshine or rain. What I have is bad, from my shoes to my pad. In the first time in my life, loaning money was sad. Now the people return, and my lifestyle switches. My name is DJ Rap, I'm on the road to the riches.
Got a job with the mob making G's, doing some pickups, deliveries, and transport keys. Yeah, they got me like the flunky money. I'm driving around town with 6 kilos inside my trunk, G. And I'm holding a suitcase with $500,000 on my lap in front of my face. And I'm trying to ignore it, but sometimes I get tempted to go deaf and make a run for it. The thought alone makes me shiver. Damn, what if I get caught and found me floating in a Hudson River? But if I escape, I'll be in shape for my life. But they might get my kid and my wife. See, I'm supposed to make a stop to an uptown spot, run up the block and make another drop. But I got something else in mind. So at the next stop sign, I pull out and load up the 9. I got the money in the hit. Went through the block non-stop, cause I ain't dropping off a rock of it. But then I thought of a plan. So I drove to my house to get my girl and my little man. Come on, baby, pack your stuff, get ready.
Damn, why your face all sweat?
Just hurry up, don't throw no fits. I'm a dead man, walking, understand, we got a flip. I switched the locks on the door. Started packing the Gucci bags like I was going on a world tour. Grab the luggage and a gun. Come on, we gotta go. They got a brother on the run.
They got this shit. What? They got the whole shipment. I want that son of a bitch dead. I want it dead. I want it dead.
Now I'm driving and I'm looking at my passport. I'm out of here soon as I hit Kennedy Airport. Loaded the other automatic. I don't believe it. I'm like a sitting duck stuck in traffic. I'm getting nervous as hell, G. I'm like a continental pulling right up beside me. Every time I throw it, then I'm bent low. Bullets are flying through my window. The enemy is on attack. Shoot a nine and crack the hammer and a fire that Kenny's back. I gotta take my respect. My bullets hitting crazy mafia members in the neck. Looked at my girl, a bullet struck her. Put in another clip, cause I ain't giving up nothing, my brother. Hit me rolling up in trenches. Spraying at my car, only missing me by little inches. Stepped on the gas pedal, I bet my girl is harmed. Man, they only hit her in her upper arm. Now I'm driving on sidewalks, making sharp turns. My son is in the back, catching heartburn. I got the car shaking wildly. I made a turn, and then I did the beamer in a dark alley. They go right past all the chasing stuff is done. Yeah, they got a brother on the run.
I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on it.
The next thing I know, it was daylight. And I was sleeping with the engine running all night. I started pulling on my hoe.
Come on, man, what?
Wake up, stupid, we gotta go. Pulled out the alley, then I dipped. Looked down and picked up the 9 and put more rounds in the clip. You know I'm heading south, no doubt. Don't care about my whereabouts as long as it's a hideout. Finally, we crossed the border. I pulled into a station to fill up the tank and get a drink of water. Pulling over to pump my ride. Just when I noticed the slimmers ain't coming up on my left side. Then the sucker started rearing me. Then I looked, it was the Luciano family. Looked at my girl, she started crying. My finger on the trigger, pulled it, bullet started flying. Now I'm hitting all them bastards. Dropping them fast when I'm blasting blood splashes. Then I finally done it. I took them all out, but I caught one in the stomach. Now I'm looking for survivors. So I ran up on the side of the car and hit the driver. And then I laid low. Catching my bus, the only one left was Don Luciano. So I struck upon the sucker. Put my gun to his head. What's up now, motherfucker? He said, wait, I wanna talk. I put his brains on the sidewalk. Another life I had to waste. He fell on his back and then I spit right in his Denny face. He saw the barrel of the devil's gun. Now they no longer got a brother on the run.
Pick me up in his BMW. Pick me up in his BMW. Pick me up in his BMW. Pick me up in W. BMW.
girl was telling me she was all alone, so I asked her if she was down to go to Union Square, check out the show. She said okay, she'd never seen Red Spin. In order to go, she'd have to bring a friend. Thought if I put things up, getting paid would be a shoo-in. Wonder what Playboy's doing. He called up Play and asked if he'd do me a favor, help me get skis. He said, alright kid, I'ma do this for you, but make sure I get a piece too. He gave me the sign, I gave him the cue. Picked me up in his BMW.
Last night changed it all. Last night, I really had a ball. Last night.
At the house we just maxed. The girls came out ready to attack. Mine was dope, but his was whack. Play looked at me and said, yo, I ain't with that, I'm out of here. He wanted to lose her. We got in the car, he began to abuse her. Broke on her face, said it was a crime. He said, your head's so bald, I could read your mind. I closed my ears, tried not to listen, laughing so hard that our play was whipping her all the way to Union Square. Hip hoppers and toppers were everywhere. I have to admit, it was quite a scare, y'all.
Cause there's nothing in the world that run no level like a cold chill at a party in a b-boy dance. And rock on the mic and make the girls wanna dance. Fly like a dove and jump them up above. I'm rocking on the mic and you call me Run Love. Big Peppers, so run rock grind. Humpty Dumpty fell down. Start time. Jack nimble, what? Nimble. And he was quick, but jam. Mass mud, Dr. Jack or J. Dick. Now little Bo Peep Cole lost her sheep. And Rip Van Winkle fell fella hella asleep. And Alice chilling somewhere in Wonderland. Jack serving Dill bucket in his hand. And Jam Master Jay's making out that sound. The turntables might wobble, but they don't fall down. Turntables might wobble, but they don't fall down. Turntables might wobble, but they don't fall down. Something up, don't get that thing. But Jam Master educator, child educator, Jam Master Jay, king of the Fader. He's the better of the best, best believe he's the baddest. Perfect time to when I'm climbing, I'm a rhyming acrobatic, lot of guts. When it comes to girls, move their butts. His name is Jay, in the play, he must be nuts. You know the mix real quick, and I like to say he's not black, but he's black, and his name is Jay. He goes a 1, 2, 3, and Jay's like King Midas, as I was told. Everything that he touched turned to gold. He's the greatest of the great, get it straight, he's great. He claims fame, cause his name is known in every state. His name is Jay to see him play. Will make you say, goddamn that DJ made my day. 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 Like the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. He's a maker, a breaker, and a title taker. Like a little old lady who lives in a shoe. If cuts were kids, he would be true. Not lying, y'all. He's the best I know. And if I lie, my nose will grow. Like a little wooden boy in Pinocchio. And you all know how the story go. Tricks of the kids, he plays much kids. He's a big bad wolf, and yo, the 3 pigs. He's a big bad wolf in the neighborhood. Not meaning but meaning good. There it is.
He what? Welcome back to the Pad. Thank you for joining us. As always, want to go right to the phones. He is the Chief of Police in Little Rock, Arkansas. He is Chief Humphrey. And Chief, I appreciate you coming on, sir.
Anytime for you, my man. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm in North Carolina. We're going through some storms here. So in preparation, whether it be hurricanes or other type of natural disasters, how does it work? I mean, you went from Oklahoma to Little Rock. What is the protocol on not only just taking care of people and taking care of the situation, but the training that goes into before that?
So since 9/11, we've seen a increase in the training for national incident management systems, which is basically a process in place, a protocol in place where you have all the decision makers in one room and the operational people who are running the operation as far as actually out in the field, providing information back to those inside of an emergency operations center, so that they can make the decision on what resources, who needs to be called, what resources, how long do people need to work, do we need to notify the National Guard? So really all the city leaders and decision makers. You do a lot of tabletop exercises for these type of incidents, because the NIM system helps you, no matter the size of the incident, it helps you be organized so that you know what to do, who does what, and everybody's on the same page. And so that's the type of training that you do. You, like I said, tabletops, you talk about it, you partner and you work with, that's why the fire department and the police department work really well together. That's why adjoining cities, so that you can all work together and know when this happens. And so you take tips from other cities who've gone through this, and police chiefs talk and officers talk, so you can you'll be prepared when something like this happens. You can have the resources, or at least the training, to be able to address these issues, because they happen, and all hands are on deck. So there's no such thing as a detective. There's no such thing as a training officer. Everybody's on deck when these things occur.
A lot of times, though, Chief, we see where there's too many chiefs, if you will, not enough Indians. Have you experienced that? And if so, what's sort of the bureaucracy that goes into that when you get that? Because, I've seen in mass shootings, which we'll get to, the FBI comes in and ATF, based on whatever's going on, and local authorities, and then there's a chain of command, but that chain of command seems to get lost, if you will. So what is any of that sort of sticking your chest out, I'm in control type stuff go on in your experiences?
I've never had that problem, and let me tell you why. That's why the unified command and the NIM system works really well, because when that happens, say for instance, we're talking about, we know that when that situation happens, there's a hierarchy. So it's really about, depending on if it's something, say, case in point you mentioned earlier. So take the mass shootings. When there's any type of belief or thought that there might be domestic terrorism, or anything that may deal with federal charges, the FBI, the local agencies, ATF, they work really well. And so you make a decision. You remember I talked about that command center. You make that decision who's going to take the lead. And so there's not any of this, well, it's ours, it's ours. Once that starts calming down, or once you've got the crime scene and the perimeter set, everybody comes out unified as one, and you've already made the decision who's going to take the lead on it. And then you work in a support, those departments that are probably not in the lead, that are not in the lead of the investigation, take a very strong support position. Anything, so everybody works together. Everybody works together. I've never seen that because the FBI will tell you that they're not there to take over any situation. A lot of times, LA, what you have is you have the local agencies, like the chief will call the FBI special agent in charge and say, we need your help. So some of it's support. They have some of the resources that your local police departments or your local sheriff's department may not have. So that
really
it's a
Chief,
joint effort.
Not to cut you off, but so it's nothing like My Law and Order. So like it's not people coming in testosterone wise, and let me be clear. Actually, I mean male or female coming in rank and saying, hey, we're taking this over, and then the other part
Absolutely
of it is also that it's not one of those things where it might be a joint a situation where different venues and different law enforcement agencies are coming in place, but at the end of the day, nobody's trying to take credit for that serial killer or for solving Katrina or whatever the case may be.
No, that's why you have what's called the Incident Command or the Emergency Operations Center, because everybody's working together. Everybody's working together because there are times when the federal agencies have to come in, and they have to have resources, or local law enforcement has to have resources. But no, there's not. I've never seen that happen, and I'll tell you, LA, what really prevented that and what really made the federal agencies and local agencies work together was 9/11. 9/11 is really what started or was the catalyst in local and federal agencies working together. Because really we're all in this together. So no, it's not about who. Who has the bigger muscle. It's about, okay, what can we do together? Because when you have those type of incidents that occur, you have to have that support. And then police chiefs and special agents in charge and sheriffs, they work together constantly, talk together, have lunch together, have meetings. A lot of the local agencies have officers that are on federal task forces, sheriff's department and local agencies. They work together. They share some of the same resources, and then a lot of them are on specialized teams. So 9/11, as tragic as it was, it did cause a change in the law enforcement mentality when it comes to federal, local, and county and state agencies working together.
Talking with Chief Humphrey, of course, Chief of Police in Little Rock, Arkansas, here on the pad. So, Chief, so what are some of the steps that law enforcement has to take? I'm here in North Carolina. We're embracing or getting ready for this hurricane that's supposed to be coming here. What are some of the steps that law enforcement takes along with fire and local government to ensure people not only are safe, but to get the word out that they should be on call in these incidents?
So there's protocols in place for officers to know. There's call-up protocols in place. So officers know there's different levels of call-up. And so just say, for instance, Category A is the highest level, which means you're required to come in. And then you may work 12-hour days, but, you have relief that's coming in. And so really and truly, law enforcement's part is really support, helping local fire departments. And if it gets so bad, the National Guard. A lot of times local law enforcement takes that support role to prevent looting, to prevent other criminal activities, and sometimes just blocking the roadways, making sure that people aren't trying to go in and out of their location, in and out of their residence, because the biggest thing is people want to save as much as they can. But if you have a street that's blocked off or an area that's blocked off, local law enforcement will take the role in helping with that blockage so that people won't cross that line and get hurt or worse. And so really they take a support role. And the fire department's role is really the search and rescue part of it, depending on how bad it gets. but you'll see on a lot of your news stations when they have these massive floods, you'll see those boats. Well, normally that's the fire department, and they're out there rescuing people, making sure everybody's safe, going door to door. And then, you start talking about the National Guard. That's a whole different level. So really, the police is really a support group. There are times when officers go door to door to help evacuate people. I look at the wildfires out in California. You'll see local law enforcement knocking on doors, helping evacuate people, blocking off areas. So it's really a preventative measure for law enforcement.
And so, Chief, just specifically when you get in situations, and a lot of times, unless you're in the Gulf, unless you're on the coast, you don't, hurricane-wise, you don't get that. But there's other natural disasters and things that take place. What does law enforcement do, and what have you experienced when you tell people, listen, it's time to go, this is going to be bad, we need you to adhere to what we're trying to say, because it's just like, and I'll get into the whole gun thing, but it's just like law enforcement going into disaster areas or areas where there are tornadoes, and you're in Oklahoma, so you know tornadoes. So those situations, I mean, you weren't there. Those situations where you're going into the midst of the pit, you're going into danger, and you didn't have to go into danger if people would adhere to the fact that you tell them leave or else, but they don't leave. So what do you do about people like that? How do you handle that?
You can't make people leave. If a person says they want to stay, that's their right to stay. But you can't keep
like
people
Florida,
from entering back.
Yeah, but there are certain, like I lived in Florida, and every day there are places where they say it's mandatory. Isn't mandatory? There's no fine or no.
Mandatory.
Okay, go ahead.
Mandatory is mandatory, and there are some times I've seen it where they issue. I have not worked in an area where they've had mandatory evacuations. I've had it where they've told people it's in their best interest to evacuate. But if a governor or mayor issues that mandatory, then you have to go. And a lot of times it's not really, you try not to take enforcement. It's really just basically saying, hey, let's go. And a lot of times you can actually talk people into leaving. When you say, "Hey, listen, this is the deal. We don't want to make you leave. We don't want to, force you to leave. But for the sake of your safety and your family's safety, why don't you leave? We've got a temporary shelter set up over here, and as soon as we can let you back in your area." And a lot of times people will leave. They understand that while you're doing it. That's one of the things that you have to really be careful about, LA. Forcing people out of their homes, telling people that you have to go. But there's a way that I think that you can persuade people to leave. But yeah, there's been some incidents where people have had to ask, especially like wildfires and things in California, and they've had to physically remove people from their homes. You there? Hello?
I apologize for that. I want to go to the situation. Okay. We're going to go and take a break, get Chief Humphrey back on the line. 646-929-0130, the number to get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. We'll get Chief Humphrey back online and finish up our conversation with him on the past 8 too.
We gon' start this thing alright. Groove all in the money logging out. Come on, come on. Hey, 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 do it, baby, take it, baby. Hey, 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 do it, baby, take it, baby. Hey, 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 do it, baby, take it, baby. Hey, 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 do it, baby. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now.
You got a lot to be smiling for. So what the you be wildin' for? Come on, I get my grin on. I'm smiling, bitch, cause I always get my win on. I've been on so many different stages. Graced the cover of 100 magazine pages. Made people smile everywhere that I went. I even put it on the first black president. It's evident I'm hot as a crock pot, with a big ass smile like Mr. Hot Spot. You got a lot to be smiling for. So what the you be wildin' for? If you're breathing, you achieving. We having fun this evening, believe it.
I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now.
Put your middle fingers up in the air and show a hater you don't even much care. We finna get another bag this year. My ex, you can have that there. Hey, this year bad vibes get cut off. More trips, new chicks with no draws. More drinks, more smoking, more cars. More shows with Duval and Snoop Dogg. Look, I ain't tryna throw no shade, cause I can't see them in my lane. As long as my rent getting paid, I can care less with a big thing, huh? You in the club every night with no job, eating good off your food stamp card. You made a killing last year off fraud. If you know you ain't going to work tomorrow,
I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now. I'm living my best life. Ain't going back and forth with you now.
You got a lot to be smiling for. So what the you be wildin' for? If you're breathing, you achieving. We having fun this evening, believe it.
Welcome back to the pad. We thank you for continuing to listen. Back to Chief Humphrey. And Chief, I wanted to talk to you about the mass shooting. Is obviously we've had this conversation before about mass shootings and the fact that we talked about solutions and things of that nature. You're in law enforcement. You don't really have much say politically in this. But I have to ask you and have to say, and Ty Miller, I see you. I have to ask you though, Chief, before you go, that just like going into a hurricane storm and telling people they need to leave so you can go do your job, I can't imagine a police chief and his officers and law enforcement going in with a 9 facing AK-47s and those type of military ammunition and weaponry. So to me, I guess my question to you is, doesn't it behoove law enforcement not to want to get on board to get rid of assault weapons? And then the final part of that question is, how does the law enforcement get involved? Because essentially, I'm not going. That's like taking a bow and arrow into a gunfight. You got a 9, right, and you go pop, and they shoot back, pop, 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 pop. I mean, it's not even a fair fight. And I would think law enforcement would want to ban these weapons.
Right. Well, I think, it's a very slippery slope because law enforcement now, I would say a large percentage of the law enforcement agencies, the officers are assigned police patrol rifles. And it's just for what you were saying. The rifles are really to address some of the encounters that we're having out here, because you do have more individuals that are utilizing high capacity automatic weapons, whether it's semi-automatic, whether it's fully automatic. And so that's where a lot of the training comes in. But, when you have an active shooter, you can't wait until, we're trained now. Once you get on scene, you assess the threat, you go in and you try to eliminate that threat. So you're absolutely right. You're hoping that there's a rifle there because a rifle is more accurate in that situation. It's more fit for that situation. But if you don't have that rifle on scene, you've got to use your handgun. A lot of chiefs are afraid to speak out on it. But one of the things I've said is that I truly believe that there is a need for those rifles, for patrol rifles, based on the work we do. I do have a concern about people being able to purchase fully automatic or semi-automatic. And the key is the people that I'm concerned about, LA, are those individuals that have been diagnosed with a major mental illness, and those individuals that are convicted felons, and of violent crimes, things like that. That's who I worry about. But what I've also told people
and real Chief and Ty Miller, I appreciate your patience, and Reggie as well. But Chief, I respectfully, I think it does a disservice. Is not to say that you shouldn't mention mentally ill people, but it's 3% of the population, and typically, I'm not a doctor and never played one, but from my understanding and doing the research and talking to people in that industry, mentally ill people want to kill themselves before they want to kill anybody else. So I understand bringing that up, and I understand that that's part of it. That's that portion. But people with violent crimes and people who shouldn't have a gun and people who snap, because I think snap and mentally ill, to me, again, I'm not a doctor, could be different things. So the mentally ill angle is real, but I don't know how relevant it is as it relates to these mass shootings, Chief. And you know better because you're in it. So
Right, and what I will tell you is that if you go back and you read the biographies or the storylines on these individuals, they have been diagnosed with some form of mental illness. Now, I'm not talking about anxiety, and I'm not talking about depression. I'm talking about schizophrenic, paranoid, those type of sociopath, those type of forms. And all I say is when you're diagnosed with that, I think there needs to be a database so when you do go to try to purchase a gun, there's something that maybe red flag and say, hey, this might need another look. I don't think. Now let me say this. You're absolutely right. Everyone who commits a crime, these crimes of terror, these horrific crimes, is not mentally ill. They're just sociopaths and psychopaths, and their main focus is to hurt people. They want to hurt people, and so those, how do you mitigate and find out who those individuals are? How do you find out that somebody's violent and somebody doesn't need to buy a gun if they don't meet the categories that I mentioned earlier? And that's
right.
The key. That's the key. How do you stop that? Well, I don't know how to stop that, because what does a sociopath look like? What does a psychopath look like? Does it look like your average soccer mom? Does it look like your average banker? Does it look like somebody who works at McDonald's? I don't know what they look like. And the sad thing about it is you don't know until it's too late. That's the thing. And the other thing is people don't tell. What was the last? I think the one that happened in the one that happened
in Texas.
Yeah, no. What was the most recent one?
It might have been. It was it was in Dayton, and it was.
No, it was West Texas. It was West Texas.
Yeah, West Texas. It was Texas. Yeah.
So think about this, L.A. The neighbors knew this guy was shooting. They had reports that he was shooting his weapon in the air. That didn't just happen one time, but people fail to report. They don't report because that's just him doing that. He's just who he is, and so those are the things that people don't report because they just think, number one, they may be afraid to. Number two, it doesn't affect me. And number three, he's not going to do anything. That's just him testing a new gun or whatever. So it's one of those things. I don't know how to fix it. I wish I did. I think there's several things you can do to try to fix it. But, just to say, just to look for a complete solution, man, that's very difficult. And it's you continue to have people, organizations like the NRA, they don't want certain bans and restrictions put on the purchase of weapons, no matter what. I commend Walmart for what they did. I commend Dick's Sporting Goods for what they did. That was a big step.
Right, and I'll say that as I go to Reggie, if he got a couple of questions before we get to Ty Miller, Chief, outside of the DC sniper, they don't. You talk about what they look like. They don't look like us. Let's be clear.
Gotcha.
They don't look like us. Let's be real clear about that. Outside of the DC sniper, they do not. Look at the FBI profiles. They do not look like you and I. We're African American, Reggie, everybody on this phone line. They don't look like us going around shooting people. Let's just be clear. Not to say that inner city, Chief, you're in Little Rock now. Inner city, you know how gang violence and things of that, black on black crime happens. But I'm saying in terms of these mass shootings, this last one, he lost his job and was crazy as hell and shot somebody. He didn't look like us. And you can go back and go back and go back and go back, and they don't look like us. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it can't happen. DC snipers.
I understand.
But I'm just saying, they don't look like us. Reggie Howell. Good evening.
Gentlemen, good evening. I hope all is well. Chief, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Reggie, how about you, man?
As always, sir, much love to you and your family. Wow, you in Arkansas now. You went from the fire to the frying pan, man. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, I'm looking historical. I'm not being flippant and say that because I'm looking from a historical point of view, and I'm sure not on the culture shock. But it's some backwardness that's going on. As the city council, a young lady said about a year ago, how she stood up in front of the city council and talked about disparity amongst young black men and women. But I'm not going to take my time, Chief, but I'm saying this. It's amazing how these Europeans can get out here and do mass shooting. They're taking a life. But a young black man supposedly selling cigarettes get choked out in New York, and 5 years later, the criminal is fired from his job. And we see this over and over again. So I just say, Chief, my love to you, and I pray that you go home safe each and every night. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, man. Appreciate you.
And Chief, just to put a wrap on what Reggie was saying, as I let you go, and I appreciate Ty Miller your patience. Again, there seems to be a disconnect though, because not just because of what you said with the neighbor, and that neighbor, if this is the same story, and maybe not, but even if it is not, this particular guy who was shooting was killing animals on the top of. He was shooting animals from the top of his roof. If that's not crazy, if that's not calling the police, and by the way, she did, and the police didn't show up, which is a whole other conversation we have another day. Chief.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
If that's not enough, I mean, where's the disconnect with this? And I mean, it's got to be a way, Chief. Listen, I love you, man. And like Reddy said, keep your head down and keep your head up at the same time. Protect yourself. But what in the ham sandwich can we do if you got all these signs? And even if she called the police and they didn't come out, it's on somebody's record. It's on the chief, on the station's record that this guy was shooting animals from his roof. So it's on record. So what happened?
Right.
Where's the disconnect on that? I don't get that part.
I don't get that either, man. I don't see how. I mean, that would be some serious questions, and I would have to open up an investigation on that because, and I can tell you right now, I'm pretty sure, or I'm hopefully sure, that someone did open up an investigation on that because somebody dropped the ball and the call didn't get dispatched, or the call was ignored. And so my thing is that's the key question, and that police department is going to have to answer those questions. Those are the type of things that you can't ignore, LA. You can't ignore. A person calls and tells you that. Those are some of the main things that the FBI are telling you. Hey, listen, when people call you, we can't take this lightly. Even if you find out that there's no legitimacy to this, you still have to go out and you have to investigate. And, take notes. Just a little bitty things that you notice could help prevent something. And so that would be my question. I don't know why a police department wouldn't show up. That's concerning. That's concerning. That's very concerning and very, very unacceptable.
Yeah, and I don't get that at all. And so you're right. I mean, you're on point, Chief. And if it happened in your department, knowing you on and off the air, I'm sure that would be a huge investigation for you, find out what's going on. But that doesn't make any sense. Somebody's on their roof shooting. I don't care if they're shooting. They're on their roof shooting animals. Like, what the heck? That doesn't even make sense.
Well, most cities have that where you can't discharge a firearm within the city limits. So if nothing else, I think if you do have somebody doing that, that does rise to the level of contact from a police officer. And it may not be anything, but I think you got to go out there and see what's going on. And that's very disturbing, man. That is so disturbing and so disheartening.
In this climate too, in this climate, you definitely. I would side on the on the air of caution, just to make sure nobody's being hurt in this climate. And liability, that's a big word right there. Chief, as always, as Reggie said, please do take care of yourself. And I know you have the best interest in your officers there in Little Rock. God bless you and love you, man. And we'll talk with you next week, sir.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. God bless you, man, and you take care.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take a 30-second break and come back. Ty Miller patiently waiting on the line. We're going to get to our, or I would say, his top 10, a very good top 10, and talk some games. And a matter of fact, we'll talk about the Black College Football Hall of Fame game which was very exciting. Where that goes, what he thought about the game, what he thinks of where it will go. All of that with Ty Miller on the pad.
Space. Some regions are vast and empty, other areas we call closets. Fortunately, Kevin from the Container Store has answers.
Right.
Kevin, what gives you the power over space?
I'd say Alpha customizable closets. With free design and Alpha's adjustable shelving and drawers, I can create space in any size closet.
Kevin, master of space and closets.
Or just Kevin. Plus, right now, save 30% on Alpha and installation and earn up to $500 in credit through February 10th.
At the Container Store, where space comes from.
Where is that music coming from?
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Batchelor News Radio Show. LA Batchelor, it is the Batchelor News Radio Show. And thanks to Chief Humphrey, our resident chief, giving an insight not only on what needs to be done in disasters, but also mass shootings. And we talked about that. Want to switch gears, patiently waiting on the line from Power News Radio Network, the voice, I call him. It's him and Charlie Neal that have the voice. I don't have the voice. But Ty Miller and Charlie Neal, I'm sure he's very familiar with Charlie Neal, have the voice, and good to have Ty Miller back on the line. And Ty, appreciate your patience, sir, and good evening.
Hey, LA, what's going on?
Yeah, man. Thank you for your patience. So I want to go before I go to your top 10 and get a look at some of the games, and you know, I know in preseason in week 1, the SWAC, MEAC took it on the chin, but I want to get into, Ty, about the Black College Football Hall of Fame game. And listen, I had Coach Freeman on, and he was talking about the experience, not only experience for allowing your kids to go there and see Canton, where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is, and see some of the, and then you got all these black Hall of Famers, the Mel Blunts, the John Stallworths who are involved with this, others who are involved with this that are Alabama A&M and other alum that come from that experience. And then you had a great game. So what do you see in terms of the vision of this game? I think it's Howard, and I can't remember who it is, Ty. Next year, I know Howard's playing. But Morehouse and Alabama and A&M put on a show. I mean, it was a great game, and got a text from Coach at the end, like it was a tough loss. But what do you think about the vision of this game today and moving forward?
Well, I think it's going to be a great annual game in the future because the first and foremost, the Black College Hall of Fame is going to be a part of the new Hall of Fame Village, the Pro Football Hall of Fame Village in Canton, Ohio, and they're going to be a major factor down there. So the partnership with the NFL, or more so the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is just tailor-made because so many HBCU players have made contributions to the National Football League and to pro football in general through the Canadian Football League as well and other professional leagues. A misnomer. A lot of people think that the NFL owns the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's actually not owned by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's a separate entity, but they have a partnership, and therefore you would think that initially where the College Football Hall of Fame is in Atlanta, Georgia, that the Black College Football Hall of Fame would be housed there too. But it makes more sense for the Pro Football Hall of Fame to have a partnership because, you know, a lot of what has happened in terms of pro football came from contributions made by black college players. So that's why it's such an important partnership. But I think in the future, this year they had about 9,000 people for a first time out, which I think is pretty good for the publicity that it got and for the advertising that they did. And I think it's going to grow. Of course, they have to do, I guess, a more wide out, spread out advertising campaign in the future. But next year, on the docket right now is Howard and Central State. And so they hopefully will draw people from Central and parts of Ohio and Detroit and other parts of the Northeast with Central State, who has a storied history in black college football with some great players. I'll just name two. Well, I named three from Central State that you may know of. Hugh Douglas played with the Eagles, was a great player for Central State. Vince Buck, who did not have a stellar NFL career, but was one of the greatest black college players ever, also played at Central State. And a guy you may know of, Eric Williams, who played offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys, those teams back in the 90s, that won consecutive championships in the NFL. And, of course, their head coach, Billy Joe. Billy Joe is, I think, at this point, maybe the third winningest coach in black college football behind Eddie Robinson and Joe Taylor, who coached at Hampton, Florida A&M, and Virginia Union. So it's going to be, I think it's a great thing. And it was, and like you said, it was a great atmosphere down there. It's a great atmosphere in terms of the black college players of the past and the new ones right now, because I spoke to some Morehouse players after the game, and we talked about the fact that they got to tour the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And one of the things one of the young men said was that it was Santo Dunn, who was actually the running back number one for Morehouse, said that he was like a kid in a candy store because he just never envisioned that he'd get to see all of the people that he watched as a younger kid growing up and watching foul footage of them on TV and just seeing them bust in the Hall of Fame was such a thrill for them. So it's a great thing. Now, you mentioned that game. It was a great game. Now, save for a lot of the penalties, which you oftentimes get in some of those type games, it was it's almost one of the things where, and it was not just Morehouse and Alabama A&M with penalties, but a lot of games this past weekend had a lot of penalties. But, oftentimes the referee maybe should consider, if it doesn't affect the play, maybe they should keep the flag in their pocket. But aside from that, it was such a great contest. And I talked to Coach Rich Freeman after the game. I talked to Connell Bader after the game. They had differing viewpoints on the last play of the game, which I thought really, with 9 seconds left in Alabama A&M inside the red zone, you would think they would kick a field goal, but they did the only play they could do with 9 seconds left. That was to go to the corner. And I really thought it was a situation where defensively, Morehouse would be ready for that because you can't go to the middle of the field. However, Alabama A&M pulled off, what is considered a great play because they did what you could do. They went to the corners, and the young man caught the touchdown. But it was a great game from the standpoint that for Morehouse, morally there were no moral victories, but looking at the numbers between Division 1A and Division 1AA, rather, as it used to be called, or FBS and Division 2, the numbers stacked up in Alabama A&M's favor with scholarships they could offer 63 as opposed to 36 by Morehouse. Yes, the young men from Morehouse, they really competed. And I'm a big proponent of there is no huge separation in black college football among the colleges except for the numbers because teams still have talent. So you'll see that all across the black college landscape. And I think it bodes well not only for the game, but also certainly for the future of the Black College Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, and just so you know, I've got some folks, if you can, if you're on a speaker, if you can come off that people are listening. Ty, the one thing is a couple of things that you said that are very important. Number one, the scholarship part of it, the 63 to 36, that's huge, yet they competed. So my first question to you is that something that you can see at the HBCU level on football side? Because remember, Morehouse won an HBCU FCS game, if you want to call it that, Division 1A game last year, and was on the brink. Number two, and in particular with this particular experience, not every, Ty Miller Jr. or L.A. Batchelor Jr. that doesn't know HBCU, that doesn't go to this game, is going to have that experience. So is this one game a year enough to take these kids back to where we were, where we appreciated a John Stewart? I'm a Steelers fan. John Stewart, a Donnie Shell, and Eric Williams at Dallas, and these people that have played at these levels at HBCU, not only played at these levels, but played at these levels and are Hall of Famers.
I don't think one game is. Certainly, of course, there are a lot of games on television these days if you have cable and certainly ESPN and even on digital networks that you can pick up these games. But certainly, I think there needs to be more widespread viewership of the games. And there are networks that do it. Like, for one, I think it's called there's a network, I can't even think of it. I'm drawing a blank right now. The Aspire TV Network. They show games normally on Saturdays that you can see. But certainly, what the game needs more than anything else, the Black College game needs more than anything else at this point, they need to create names, more so than just the team, so to speak. But people know the Jerry Rices, they know the they know the Doug Williamses, and they know people like that, and they know the Steve McNairs. But still, LA people did not get to know them in college necessarily, unless you saw the games or lived in those certain cities, because America at that time, pretty much like right now, they were not promoting black college stars and things of that nature. So even right now, it's few and far between. Now, the name that may get the most recognition now is by association. I'm sure you may have heard of Cade Newton, and that's Cam Newton's brother who plays at Howard. He has name recognition, and people automatically say, well, that's Cam Newton's brother. So you know him, but that's what's lacking, if anything, in the black college game, because there's not enough games on television to make these young men stars, or not enough visibility, and certainly not enough reporting on what they do to make them household names like you have the players on the major colleges at the Power 5 levels, like at the Alabamas, the Ohio States, Penn States, the Michigans, and other places. But, if there were a concerted effort or there were more widespread coverage of these games, certainly you would have more popularity. Because I can certainly tell you, living here in Pittsburgh, there are a lot of people, a lot of kids who have not heard of these black colleges. They have not heard. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I was attending the high school football game, and a young black player was pretty good, and he was, talking to me about he was going on to college. I said, well, why don't you consider Howard? He said, what is that?
Oh, wow.
It's the black college.
So Ty, whose fault is that? Is it the SID? Is it the AD? Is it whose fault at the HBCU level where they don't get, at least on the name recognition, because the institutions, like you said, are out there, but from the name, pumping the name, how do we fail that? Where do we fail there?
I'll just say never blame the SID, the Sports Information Director.
No, I'm not.
I know you're not. Only because I worked with those guys for over 30 years.
Me too.
I've been in there for 30 years, since 1990, working in this field, and it is an underappreciated, overworked, tireless, time-consuming, humbling position that those SIDs at the black colleges never, ever get enough credit. Because even right now, while football has just kicked off, a lot of the SIDs at the black colleges are focusing on getting their basketball information together and volleyball out. And they're, in some cases, they don't have support or a lot of support to help them. So the SIDs, for the most part, most I've encountered, they've done their jobs over the years. And certainly it's just a part of the administration, because sometimes these schools are under, funded, certainly understaffed. So they really can't do justice to what needs to be done to make the product what it can be or what it should be in terms of the publicity they receive. And oftentimes I catch flack sometimes for the polls I've been ranking for years. People say, well, why do you rank, maybe a Howard and an Albany State in the same classification of a top 10 poll? And to me, I always say, well, I know the numbers are different scholarship-wise, LA. However, there's not much separation in those teams, as witnessed by what happened last week between Alabama A&M and what happened, with Morehouse. And Morehouse beat Arkansas Pine Bluff last season. And
that's right.
Other teams have beaten other teams, and you'll likely see it this weekend. I'm not saying, like, for example, Tuskegee will take on Alabama State. That's a backyard brawl. The numbers are greater at Alabama State, but the Tuskegee players are just as hungry and just as good. And, that series has been, normally an even series over the years. So anything can happen in those type games, in those backyard brawls. So I wouldn't doubt. I mean, for me, ranking the teams together is more about publicity than anything else, because oftentimes people have not heard of a Bowie State. And because most people say, well, they'll look at the poll, what is Bowie State? What is Bowie State? And for me, not only ranking the teams based on what they do, what they can do, but also their records. And oftentimes, there's not that much separation. And if there were two different polls, you would have a top 10 in the Division I classification, where maybe the number 3 or 14 at the end of the season might be 5 and 6. And that's not a true indication of top teams. Where in Division II, you might have teams who are like, the winning team might be like say 7-5 or 7-4. So I think bringing all the teams together, because they are not that there's not that much separating a lot of them. Some of them certainly, but a lot of them are not that separate.
Yeah, and really, let's be clear. If you look at the talent level at 1 and 2 is pretty much the same. So that kind of incorporates your whole top 10. Want to go to the phones and bring back Reggie Howell and Reggie. What say you, sir?
Gentlemen, good evening, sir. How you doing today, my friend?
Hey, Reggie, how are you?
Well, speaking from the HBCU point of view, I remember when North Carolina A&T banned Unleash, and I do mean Unleash on Liberty University. And when they saw those beautiful majorettes and those black girls do their thing, they canceled the rest of their they see so much gyration in their life they couldn't take it.
That's right. Certainly, oftentimes the experience, a lot of people have not had the experience of going to a black college game. I'll say to everyone, if you haven't done so, you should go to at least one, and go to one where there's going to be a sizable crowd and competitive at that, because there are a lot of competitive games, and the atmosphere is like no other atmosphere at a black college game.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because University of Alabama Birmingham played Alabama State, and if you go on YouTube, if you see that halftime show, hey, Alabama State did the big stamping. They
I think we might have lost Reggie for a second here.
Okay.
And we'll get back to Reggie in a sec. And Ty, before we get to your top 10, and we'll get back to that call, any surprises? I mean, Central lost. They took it on the chin. I thought that Alabama State was going to win the game against UAB. Delaware State was okay, but then you got the Florida A&Ms, which I thought and really still think are back on the block. They took it really bad against Central Florida, and Central lost to Austin Peay pretty bad. Any surprises or disappointments in terms of what you saw in black college football?
I'll say this, LA. I was not surprised. And going back to Reggie was talking about the Alabama State UAB game in the halftime show. Certainly, Alabama State competed with UAB. They gave up a couple of splash plays, a long kickoff return, and a long touchdown pass, which really cost them the game. But the fact that they competed near the end and throughout the entire game bodes well for Alabama State, which makes this week intriguing when they take on Tuskegee, because Tuskegee is expected to, they're the underdog in this game. But the games are always competitive, like last season when Tuskegee lost in overtime to Alabama State 26-20. Now, I was not surprised about the games last week. One of the biggest surprises, if anything, this could have been gone a lot worse than it really did, but was the fact that Arkansas Pine Bluff competed with TCU, and that final score was 37-9. When Arkansas Pine Bluff last season, they fell to South Dakota State 90-6. And in that game, I remember the South Dakota State coach saying that he tried to call things off, but he really could have took a knee and ran the clock down, but he just didn't, because in the fourth quarter he still had first string players in the game. But looking at what Maryland did to Howard, not surprised, because Mike Locksley, the new head coach at Maryland, ran a wide open offense in Alabama the past couple of years. So it did not surprise me. And when you talk Maryland, when you talk Howard, there's a huge discrepancy. That some of the kids may have played in high school together, some of them, but there's a huge discrepancy between Maryland and Howard. Now you look at South Carolina State and Wofford. South Carolina State beat Wofford, at South Carolina State last week. Now that was a bit of a surprise, being that the last couple of years South Carolina State has been down, but it signals that Buddy Pugh may have that team back on the rise again. And I'm thinking of some other games.
Which is a really good thing for them. So,
really, it is. It definitely is. Delaware State, losing 31-13 to Delaware was also, if you think there are moral victories, a little more moral victory because that game is normally more lopsided than that. Morgan State was blown out, but by I think it was Ball State. The thing about those pay-for-play games, anyone expecting it's a shock when a black college team wins those type games, like UNLV and Howard a couple of years ago. Howard surprised UNLV and outscored them. But normally, you're not going to get many situations where a black college team is going to beat a Power 5 or an upper-tier FBS team. It rarely happens. And really, those are pay-for-play games because it helps the athletic administrations and the athletic budgets of the black colleges. Now, and certainly you can look at this. None of them were in a situation like, who was it last week? Tennessee lost. University of Tennessee
right.
lost to Georgia State.
Georgia State, yeah.
And they paid them $900,000 to beat them. So that was an embarrassing situation for Tennessee because it was a play-up game. Georgia State just really getting into Division I competition, FCS competition. But, and they were a 30-something point underdog to Tennessee. And yet they go to the Volunteers and they beat that team. So that's a rarity that happens. Like several years ago, Appalachian State beat Michigan. But that's a rarity. Sometimes teams got napping. But you're not going to see many black college teams win these type games only because the numbers and the training and the facilities and the things and the attrition and the depth start to show up really by the end of the first quarter more so than in the second and third quarter. The depth that these colleges have show up in the first quarter. So from that standpoint, I wasn't surprised to see, like I say, even Howard, it sounds embarrassing, 79-0. And yes, it may be a 79-0 score, but I don't know if anyone expected Howard to win that game. The first couple of series, they were competitive. They actually stopped Maryland a couple of times, but the numbers were not in their favor, and certainly that's why they lost.
Yeah. Reggie Howe, you have more questions for Ty Miller? Reggie?
I don't think Reggie's there.
So, yeah, he's there. It must be a mute thing. Ty, two quick questions. Number one, you look at the situations and the likes of you mentioned Howard and different schools, but when you look at the situation with HBCUs in terms of when they're playing and if they're deciding to play, if they're going to play D1 or D2 when it's an intertwined type of situation, is that going to hurt or help those schools? And if so, which division does it help? In other words, we saw with black college football from Morehouse and Alabama A&M, that's two different levels right there. Who is it going to hurt? Who's going to help? And then you can get into your top 10.
Well, in terms of who's it going to help, it's going to definitely help the HBCUs in terms of the budget that they receive for playing in those playoff games, those pay-for-play games, so to speak, when they take on the Power 5 teams. It normally versus a Power 5 team later on in the season because when they get into the rankings and consideration for the National College Football Playoff and things like that, that's when they start to dissect and say, well, Maryland played Howard, and look at Howard's. They play on the FBS level. Or look at TCU. They took on Arkansas Pine Bluff, and their power ranking shouldn't be as such because they played a team, not necessarily a black college team, but they played a team on a lower tier, or like teams when they played Youngstown State or something like that. That's what hurts the Power 5s in the end. And there are proponents like Nick Saban in Alabama who says, okay, the Power 5 teams should be playing tougher competition because at the end of the season there's so much criticism about who have you played. Well, all teams have cream puff schedules. You look at the Clemson Tigers. They play teams that, the ACC is a weak division. I can't say it any other way. For the most part, there are not a lot of teams on Clemson's level in the ACC. And even outside of the ACC, when they play lower competition, there's no way those teams are going to beat Clemson. So all teams have scheduled these games in advance, and really their games scheduled to help their teams get ready for their conference schedule. And every team plays them, but the FBS teams they benefit. HBCU teams benefit by the monetary value that they have, but certainly in terms of who's hurt, the Power Fives are hurt at the end of the season, or when the Power Rankings come out and they say, okay, well, you didn't play, you played Howard, so your ranking should be as such. So it's a give and take situation. Certainly for the HBCUs, the bottom line is it still helps them in terms of at least one or two times where they get the money to bolster their athletic departments and their schools and administration, so to speak. Now, as far as this week's top 10, not much change in what happened in the preseason primarily because you had teams playing out of conference and out of division.
Right.
And so Virginia Union, who kicks off their season this week, and they take on Norfolk State. That's going to be an interesting game because Virginia Union is a power CIAA team, and Norfolk State showed last week when they took on Old Dominion.
They're playing Hampton. They're playing Hampton. Virginia State's playing.
I'm sorry. You're correct about that. I'm thinking Old Dominion.
I apologize. I'm staying in my lane. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, but you know what? As you break down the top 10, Reggie, what you said, Norfolk State did have a chance to beat ODU, by the way. Oh, by the way, they should have beat them. Yep, they had them.
Here, ODU put $75 million into a stadium that seats 22,000 people, but Mr. Price, Coach Price Stadium in Norfolk holds 30,000, and then look if they get 9,000 or 10,000 into the game. And also, sir, why is it that it seems like a lot more pro NFL players are coming back and coaching the HCUs? We got about 12 in the CIAA. I'm sure there's others in the NEAC and SWAC. Why is it now that it seems like a lot of former NFL players, Monty Clark, I think, was at Alcohol Pine Bluff. Coach Reggie Barlow was at Virginia State. And Win Selman has a former NFL player, the interim coach there now. Well, what's your thoughts about a lot of these NFL players coming to schools they didn't play at, and now they're coaching the HBCUs?
They're stepping stones. They're stepping stones to, in some cases, coordinator positions in the NFL. I'll give you one, for example. Scott Mitchell coached at Morgan State a few years ago. Now he's back in the NFL as a coordinator. So for a lot of these coaches, Reggie Barlow was in the NFL. He was at Alabama State for a number of years. Still wanted to coach, so he went down to Virginia State. For a lot of the black coaches, the NFL has this minority coaches fellowship program now. So what happens is now, through that program, a lot of the coaches, they appeal to the black colleges. And like you said, they didn't attend black colleges, certainly a lot of them. But what happens is they have an opportunity to become a head coach. And I'll give you the prime example this season. Tyrone Whitley went to the University of Michigan. Now Tyrone Whitley is the head coach at Morgan State. And depending on the resources, depending on the success, I don't know how long Tyrone Whitley will stay there, because Tyrone Whitley will eventually end up in the NFL if he can. But this is a good stepping stone, because all he has to do is put Morgan State on the even keel. Another example is Willie Simmons, who played at Clemson. Willie Simmons did wonders at Prairie View. Now he's back in Tallahassee, his hometown, at FAMU. But there are a lot of people who think that FAMU may not be able to hold him for the long haul, because Willie Simmons could end up being like a Jerry Mack, for example, who's at North Carolina Central. Now he's running Rice's offense in the Southwest. So a lot of the coaches use, and also the pay sometimes is the average equal up. And what happens is, oftentimes these colleges, these Power 5 colleges, say, okay, let's take this guy and make him a coordinator like Jerry Mack, because he can become a great recruiter for us, or because he has pro connections, so he can tell a guy, come here and we can help get you to the pros. So that's why in a lot of cases these guys are taking these jobs, and a job is a job, and no matter what level it is, it could be a stepping stone to a great opportunity.
Right, and real quick, Kevin Kennedy, that's made us running back with the Jets. We had at least, I think, about 10 or 15 HBU players. And look at little Mighty Mike from Chicago Bears, running back from A&T. He's running circles around the guys in the NFL. And also, you had the Rookie of the Year to play with the coach, the linebacker that came, I think, from South Carolina State. So, know, you're out there. Thank you for your time. So appreciate it.
No problem. The players, it's like this in football. If you can play, they'll find you. If you can play, you have talent, they'll find you. Ella, if you want me to get back to the top 10, Virginia Unity's number 10. They are taking on Hampton this week. The thing about watching this game, there's a transfer player from Florida State, DeAndre Francis, who now plays quarterback in Hampton. So it's going to be interesting as the competition gets a little stiffer than Elizabeth City State, how he handles it down at Hampton. Grambling State's number 9. Grambling played up in competition last week. So what I don't do the first couple of weeks of the season normally, I don't penalize teams for playing that top Power 5 competition. I don't penalize them because they're not playing black college competition. Certainly it comes into a factor later through the season. But early in the season, these are like, I won't say preseason games, but I have even heard black college coaches refer to them as preseason games. Alabama A&M, they are number 8. Certainly they'll be tested this week by a stronger Arkansas Pine Bluff team, who they beat 45-14 last season. But I think this game may be tough. It's down at Alabama A&M Stadium in Huntsville, but it's going to be a tougher contest for the Bulldogs because if Morehouse took them to the limit last week, Arkansas Pine Bluff has improved, so I expect a tougher game for the Bulldogs this week. Albany State, the Golden Rams, they start against Valdosta State, who won the Division II championship last year, or on their level in their competition. That's going to be a tough game for Albany State, and certainly Valdosta State has a wealth of talent down there, so it's going to be a very interesting game. Bethune-Cookman is at number 6 this week, and beating Jackson State last week, they scored all their points in the second half, and Jackson State kind of surprised some people coming out, shutting out Bethune-Cookman in the second half, but certainly Bethune-Cookman is going to be a top team all season. South Carolina State, whom a lot of people are not ranking in the top 10 this year in their black college polls, we've had them there because anytime you have a coach like Buddy Pugh and he's had an off year or two, when his talent matures, you expect him to be in the thick of things, and certainly that's what we expect from him this season. Southern Jaguars, they're at number 4. North Carolina A&T, the defending champs, they're at number 3. And I asked Coach Washington Tuesday his thoughts on Duke, because oftentimes when a team plays a team that has just lost to Alabama, they pay for it. And that could be what happens to A&T this week, although Coach Washington says they do think they have the speed to match up with Duke's speed when they take them on in Durham. Florida A&M is at number 2. Certainly they were not penalized from losing 62-0 to Central Florida last week. A lot of people looked at it and said, man, they can't score a point. Mind you, Central Florida went undefeated last year. So it's not, they were not playing a cupcake Power 5 team. And number 1, of course, is Alcorn State. Alcorn lost to Southern Mississippi. Southern Mississippi, coached by former Alcorn State coach, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. I just had it on the tip of my tongue, but they certainly have more facilities, more players down at Southern Mississippi. So that score last week did not surprise me that they beat Alcorn State. But certainly Alcorn State's going to be a top team all season and be competitive. So that's your top 10 for this week.
Hey.
Oh, oh my God. Oh my God, Craig.
He's still on.
I am on. My God. I'm just gonna throw some stuff back on.
No.
Don't. Oh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Turn it off.
Yeah. You can talk.
Is anything else?